I'm very much happy to be with all of you this morning and very much honored to speak in this historical place of Prabhupada's glorious pastimes. And I will speak a few minutes about this very important topic, which is described in all details in this section of Srimad Bhagavatam. First, I will give some little introduction to understand the circumstances under which these verses were spoken. After the Great War, Maharaja Yudhishthira was despondent. He felt terrible pain because wherever he would go, he would feel the smell of burning bodies. From everywhere he would hear the cries of widows. It was a terrible thing, and he was a soft-hearted person. He was a devotee. And devotees are generally soft-hearted, and Yudhishthira was particularly soft-hearted. And even though different people were trying to pacify him, he didn't want to be pacified. He was blaming himself that he is the cause of all this massacre. And that's nature of a devotee. Devotee doesn't want to blame others. And devotee, he takes responsibility upon his shoulders. Other people, they very easily give the responsibility to others. They say, he is guilty and she is guilty and, so many others are guilty. I'm right. Everyone else is wrong. But Yudhishthira, as a true devotee, he was saying, I'm wrong, everyone else is right. And actually Krishna, who was arranging this Leela, or Yogamaya for Krishna, who was arranging this Leela, added to his sufferings. In Mahabharata it is described that when Yudhishthira was about to be coronated, there was a grand ceremony arranged, and the Brahmanas were chanting mantras, and he was supposed to enter the city. And it was a very, very glorious event. Pandavas were going behind him, and Bhima was holding the white umbrella as a sign of his royal position. And Arjuna was there, and Arjuna was taking his reins of his chariot. And Nakula and Sahadeva were behind him, and they were waving chamaras. So it was a glorious event, and he was about to enter Hastinapur, and Brahmanas were chanting all these mantras. There was the whole vibrant atmosphere. And then all of a sudden, a demon, disguised as a Brahmana, by the name Charvaka, who was a good friend of Duryodhana, stepped out of the crowd. And he said, addressing Maharaja Yudhishthira, that I was appointed by all these Brahmanas to speak to you the truth. You think you did a great deal, you won the war. I will tell you the truth. You are the murderer. You killed all these people without any reason. And he started saying this, as Brahmanas could say. And, everyone was amazed. And Yudhishthira said, you're right. You are actually right. I'm wrong. And he started crying right there during this auspicious ceremony. The Brahmanas, they became very indignant, and they started cursing this Charvaka, and Charvaka, fell dead because of the curses of Brahmanas. But it didn't help Yudhishthira because Yudhishthira, he took it seriously. He didn't deny it. He didn't say yes. He was not defensive at all. And that's also one of the reasons, one of the characteristics of a devotee. Devotee, he takes the blames of others very seriously. It's one of the rules of the etiquette of a devotee. If somebody blames you, you should never defend yourself. You should never defend yourself. You should never become defensive. And Maharaj Yudhishthira was like this, and he said, yes, you're right. So the whole ceremony was spoiled. This whole grand ceremony was totally, completely spoiled. And Maharaj Yudhishthira went to his room and he started crying. And then one after another, first Arjuna came, and Arjuna started saying, you remember all these injustices which were done to us, this and that. And Maharaj Yudhishthira said, no. I'm not going to be consoled so easily. And Bhima came, and Bhima was, he said, this is useless, you're always getting into this emotional outfits, which are really not proper, Bhima was trying to push him. It didn't work. Nakula, Sahadeva came, Vyasadeva came. Vyasadeva started speaking from the Shastra, and he was trying to give him Shastric outlook of what happened. Yudhishthira could not be consoled. And then Krishna himself came. And Krishna was trying to give him some advice. Yudhishthira couldn't hear him. And of course, that was arrangement of Lord Krishna himself. He, from within the heart of Maharaj Yudhishthira, didn't allow him to listen his advice because he wanted to glorify Bhismadeva. And he wanted to bring Yudhishthira to Bhismadeva and make Yudhishthira hear what Bhismadeva has to say. So when they came, actually this conversation between Bhismadeva and Maharaj Yudhishthira is the biggest part of Mahabharata. Many people think that Mahabharata is about war, but the biggest parva of Mahabharata is called Shanti Parva. So it's about peace. And Bhismadeva very elaborately, for 2 months, every day he was giving lectures to Maharaj Yudhishthira, trying to console him and to explain him what is the duty of the king and what is the reason of all this. And basically in Mahabharata, Bhismadeva gives 4 reasons. I will tell this a little later. So when they came, all the sages assembled to be witness or to listen this conversation between Maharaj Yudhishthira and Bhismadeva. And Bhismadeva, when he saw Yudhishthira, when he saw Arjuna, Bhima, Nakula, Sahadeva, and Krishna, he became very emotional. He started crying. And he was trying to pay his obeisances toward Krishna, who was behind everyone and who was smiling. Because Krishna knew that now he will say something which will pacify the broken heart of Maharaj Yudhishthira. Anyways, so what happened? He starts speaking now. And he first says, Aho kashtam, aho nyayam. What a terrible thing happened. What injustices you have undergone. And he's wondering himself, Vipra dharma achyuta ashrayaha. You said, you are Dharmanandana. You are the sons of religion personified. And moreover, you are protected by the Brahmanas, by Dharma, and by Achyuta, God himself. According to the rules of Dharma Shastras, if somebody is following Dharma, he cannot undergo sufferings. It's very clearly said in Dharma Shastras that if somebody is pious, if somebody strictly follows Dharma, then he will get only happiness, right? This is a very simple and straightforward statement of Shastra. If you want to be happy, you have to follow Dharma. Dharma rakshati rakshitaha. If you follow Dharma, Dharma himself will protect you from all the sufferings. And Vipra, Brahmanas, good people, pious people, if somebody takes shelter of them and takes their association and advice, what is the question of suffering? You will be on the right track because you are in the right association and a good association. You will be happy. And Achyuta himself, here Bhismadeva says that you took shelter of Achyuta Ashrayaha. And he says, still you were suffering. So the question here, of course, Prabhupada explains that Bhismadeva is trying to console by this statement, but also he was wondering why Pandavas were suffering. If they were protected by Brahmanas, by religion, by Achyuta himself. So, and the simple answer which Bhismadeva is hinting in this verse is that Krishna is behind this. Otherwise, there is no reasonable explanation why they were suffering. Of course, in our case, to be honest with everyone, we may not be that pious all the time. At least before we became a devotee. So we can explain our sufferings because of our impious activities. And Brahmanas, I don't know if we really took shelter of Brahmanas, and there's not many around anyways. And Achyutashraya, that's also a big question in mind, whether we really took shelter of Krishna or not. But at least in this particular very clear-cut case of Pandavas, they were really pious. They never committed any sinful activities in their life. They were always taking advice of Brahmanas, so much so that even when they went to forest in exile, they had so many Brahmanas around them, There were hundreds of Brahmanas there. They were feeding all these Brahmanas every day. They didn't want to leave the association of Brahmanas even in the forest. They were living there with the Brahmanas, and Yudhishthira was always, talking with the Brahmanas because he had this nature. And of course, Achyuta was right there, right on the spot, and still they were suffering. Sometimes, we have this mentality which is very strong, that since I became a devotee, I shouldn't suffer, right? It's somewhere there, I'm a devotee, why I'm suffering? Sometimes we come to Krishna and say, Krishna, something is wrong in your arrangement. Perhaps you didn't notice my great devotion, Why is it? I'm trying to take shelter of you. Why do you send all these terrible things in my life? Like recently also, I was giving some seminar, and I was talking about taking shelter of Krishna, and that you should come to the Lord, and you should say, Krishna, I'm yours, I belong to you. So immediately there was a question. One lady is writing a question. She says, I did this. I came to Krishna. I was so sincere. I told Krishna, Krishna, I'm yours. And immediately I felt so much happiness within my heart. But then, what happened then, I cannot even describe. So many terrible things started happening in my life. Even my parents do not allow me to chant Hare Krishna mantra anymore. And she said, was I not sincere at that time? So I answered, parents of Prahlad Maharaj also didn't allow him to chant Hare Krishna mantra. Does it mean that he was not sincere? So, this very notion that as soon as we become devotees, we should be totally free from suffering, actually is the sign of insincerity. This notion is the manifestation of our sakam mentality. The ideal of pure bhakti is we should become nishkam. And nishkam means we want happiness of Krishna. And sakam means we want happiness of whom? Yes, we are devotees, we are sakama bhaktas, we are bhaktas, but we are sakama bhaktas. We want happiness of whom? Of ourselves. Krishna is there. He's happy anyway. Why should I bother about his happiness? But we have to be practical. we do so much tribulations and so much austerities. We get up so early. This is a great austerity, and we chant all these mantras. For what? There should be some practical reason for this. And this practical reason is what? Our own happiness. And that's sakam mentality. And therefore, when something wrong is happening to our life, and, inevitably something wrong will happen in our life, I can tell this with a great authority because I have, I have been a so-called devotee for 30 plus years, and Shri Radha Gokulananda ki jai, Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki jai. So many wrong things is happening all the time. In fact, nothing right is happening in my life. Only wrong things are happening. Only things which we would not normally expect. So this whole section of and here Bhismadeva initially he's wondering. He is exclaiming with a great feeling, Aho kashtam, aho anyayam, how unjust it is, how unfair it is that these things happen with people who are totally righteous, totally protected by dharma and religion and good association and even Achyuta himself. But he will not stop at this point. He will go explaining why these things really happen. So in Mahabharata, he basically gives 4 reasons. While explaining to Maharaja Yudhishthira why these things are happening to people, he gives 4 reasons. And here actually the first reason he will state in the verse number 14. Sarvam kala kritam manye. In my opinion, this all, behind this is kala, time. The reason is time. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, while explaining this statement of Bhismadeva, says that he is kind of playing along with the common mentality of people. We know this reason, we sometimes employ this reason to explain why it happened to this person or to that person, and we say, this time. Very often we say Kali Yuga, as the reason of all the problems which we have. Kali Yuga, right? Kali Yuga Prabhu, what can we do? It's Kali Yuga. Oh, Kali Yuga Mataji, what can we do? And this is the first reason and the first explanation which kind of comes to mind. Why does it happen? It happens because, what can you do? There is this time. And that's a good explanation because you don't have to blame anyone, and time will not get offended at you. So basically this is the first trick which you can employ to explain this. Oh yeah, it's time. Okay, what can you do? But really it's not an explanation in reality. Because what is time? By saying time is the common cause. Nyaya explains different causes of different events. And there are some general causes. And time is one of them. General cause means it's not a specific cause. Yes, it's a cause. There is some kind of causal relationship. Yes, time is passing and because of time it's happening. But it doesn't explain anything. If you just say it's time, it's just you feel little good. Yes, time, what can you do? But it doesn't really give explanation. So Bhismadeva in Mahabharata, he goes further. He gives 4 reasons, as I said. He said that the second reason, which if we consider all these bad events which are happening with us in our life or in the lives of other people, the second reason is svabhava. Svabhava means our nature. If we really get little deeper in the understanding of cause and effect relationship, we will understand that all the events which are happening with us are more or less manifestation of our inner state of mind. We more or less attract all these events. And when we try to blame others, really, like there is a saying, if you point your finger in one direction, there are 3 fingers pointing in the right direction upon yourself. If you try to blame somebody and say he is guilty, ultimately it's you. Ultimately you have a specific nature, and this specific nature has an ability to create specific situations which actually you wanted. Ultimately, the world is a big mirror. And you have a certain nature and you attract all these people and all these situations and all the problems you attract. Sometimes people, in the middle of problems, they started blaming something. But, ultimately, very often it happens that without problems we become bored. Really, if there was no problems in our life, we would become terribly bored. And, subconsciously we started creating these problems so that there would be some excitement in our life. Very often it is the case with us. Why all these things are happening to us. And if there is no problem, the life is kind of boring. So, Bhismadeva is saying that svabhava, this is your nature. And if you examine very minutely your nature, how your nature works, how your mentality works, what is the interaction between other people, and, how you react to all these interactions, you will understand all these things, you are the cause of it. But again, this is not deep enough understanding, because then the question is, okay, right, I'm the cause of it. But why am I as I am? Why it is? Why my nature is like this? Why my nature is not different? You have the right to ask this question. Okay, right. All these problems, I'm guilty, but why? Why I'm like this? Why I'm not different? There are some other people who are different. Why I'm not this nice, peaceful, Brahminical guy? Why I'm wild, Rajasic person? So the third reason which Bhismadeva gives, and we all know this reason. We know this reason, which ultimately doesn't explain much either. Karma, prarabdha. This is the third reason that this is prarabdha. And there is a long story in Shanti Parma where Bhismadeva is trying to explain this to Yudhishthir. This probably famous story, you might have heard it. Story about Gautami, a Brahmani widow who had a little son. And she was, all her life she was worshipping Thakur. She was worshipping the deity. And she had little son, and son was only 10 years old. And what she did, she asked the son, "My dear son, please go and pick some flowers for my Thakur's puja." And the little son, just imagine, because sometimes when we hear in a very superficial level, but just imagine the situation. She's an elderly lady, she has no protector. She has a little son who is only 10 years old. She's worshipping the Lord every day, and she's sending her son to pick up flowers to do puja for the Lord. And the son goes to the bushes, and the black cobra is crawling and biting this son, and the son fell dead. He fell dead. Just imagine this. What a terrible thing happens. And she didn't send him to do some sinful activities. He was sent to pick some flowers to worship the Lord. And the snake bit him, and he was dead. So what happened next? The Bhismadeva is telling this story. One hunter was there, and hunter knew mantras to spell the snakes, to put spell upon the snakes. So the hunter saw this, and he became very emotional. And he chanted the mantra, and he took the snake and put it in a basket. And he took the dead body of the son and came to this poor lady. And he placed this dead body of the son, and he said, "I have the culprit of this in my basket. What will I do with this snake? We can put this snake into the fire, and you will see how the snake would be just, burning in the fire. Or I can just cut the snake into pieces. You will get better, I promise you." This lady started crying and wailing, and he said, no problem, we will do justice to the snake. And this poor lady, she asked, "Will my son become alive if you do this?" He said, "No, but you will get a little better because you will be consoled." She said, No, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going into this trip, And, but he was pushing this point, "Please do this, I know. Because why you're crying then? If you're so peaceful and if you are, so composed, why you're crying over the, you will get better. I know, this is human psychology. When you see that some justice is done to the snake, you will become better." The lady was against it. And then the snake started saying, snake said, I'm not guilty. I have my master. My master, the death personified, told me to kill him. I'm just doing this. And this hunter said, no, this is wrong. You like to do this. Therefore you were doing this. So there was a long conversation, and then the death came, what can I do? It's time. Time is pushing me. And ultimately, they said karma. And ultimately Bhismadeva says karma. Karma, this is a common explanation. But again, we know in case of devotees, there is no karma. It is said, when you chanted one time holy name, there is no karma. Right? No karma. There is a story in Ramayana, or in some of the versions of Ramayana, that once a king came to king kill a cow, and king was trying to absolve his sins, and he came to one rishi, and he asked, the rishi was not there and his son was there, and he asked the son, what shall I do to get rid of this sin? And the son said, you just chant 3 times Ram's name and there will be no sin whatsoever, no consequences you will suffer, no problem you will undergo. And the king he has become very happy. He said, yes, Ram, 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 Ram. And he chanted a few more times, just in case. And then he met the Rishi. Rishi was coming back and he was very happy. So Rishi asked him, what happened? He said, your son is so smart. He gave me the means to purify myself from the sin. He said I should chant 3 times the name of Ram. And the Rishi became very angry at his son. He said, this son is an atheist. He's a complete atheist. He doesn't believe in the power of the holy name. He said you should chant holy name 3 times, whereas only 1 time is enough. The Rishi, he banned his son. He said, get out of here. I don't want to have this bad association of yours because you don't believe in the power of the holy name. So there is no karma. What kind of karma it is? We chant it so many times. Every day we chant so many times. So what is the question of karma? There is no question of karma. So, and of course, Bhismadeva, in his explanation, very tactfully, he will say, it's all Krishna. But why Krishna? What is the reason why Krishna is doing this? And how Krishna's love manifests through this? And how you can understand the plan of the Lord behind everything which is happening in your life. This is what Bhismadeva will be explaining. Ultimately, yes, we know the answer. Ultimately, we know the answer. The answer is kind of, it's a difficult answer to swallow. Why the bad things happening in the lives of devotees? Why devotees suffer? Why sometimes they suffer terribly? There is only one answer. It's Krishna. It's Krishna himself. But here in this series of verses, there will be 6 or 7 verses after that. Bhismadeva, he explains how we should understand the plan of the Lord behind everything which is happening in our life. Ultimately, yes, we know the answer, but sometimes we just cannot digest this answer. This answer is, it's just, sometimes it's very difficult. When you say karma, it's okay. Karma is okay, yes, karma, right. But ultimately, when it comes to the devotees, it's not karma. It's the personal, merciful involvement of Lord himself. And how we should reconcile with everything which is happening in our life or in the lives of other people who are around us, that's a big question. And Bhismadeva will be explaining this, and I will try to explain this tomorrow whenever I have chance for this. That was a little introduction to this. I already gave the right answer, but I know that this right answer is a difficult answer. And how to understand this answer, that this is the personal involvement of the Lord, and that's important. So basically, that's it. Thank you very much.